Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about my cactus collection and how I've moved it outside, how I have it set up, talk about the stand, a little bit of care, etc. If you don't know me, this is my houseplant channel where I talk about all the houseplant things, and I like to include content like cactus content because I know there's not a ton of people that have super robust cactus collections, but I happen to be from Arizona, Tucson specifically, and I really miss it a lot. And one of the ways that I stay connected is through cactus, and some of these varieties are actually grown in landscapes back home, so it's just really fun to see them in a smaller potted version at my house here in Missouri. So it's pretty sentimental to me and I'm always happy to share about them. Before I go through and identify all of these, because I will show you all of them individually, I wanted to talk a little bit about cactus care outside of the desert or even in the desert itself. But a lot of people are concerned about putting their cactus outside in full sun because they feel like they're not going to be able to handle all of that sun. So one of the things that I suggest is, if you are worried about that, to acclimate your plants out in the sun. So that just means putting them out in the sun for a few hours and then bringing them back in, and then slowly increasing the amount of time that those cactus spend outside in full sun. But if you're more like me, I kind of just threw them in the deep end, and I do this every year. We do experience a little bit of sunburn when I do this and sun stress, but they always overcome it. It's usually the winter time that's harder on them than the sun. So anyway, I actually just put these all out one day, and the sun hits this spot pretty heavily in the morning and then a little bit in the afternoon, and then by the time it's maybe like 2 or 3, the sun is behind a tree, so they get nice afternoon shade. As you're seeing right now, it is a bit of a cloudy day as well. Even when the sun is actually out, it's getting a little bit of dappled light through the tree, but they're mostly getting morning sun, and I would highly suggest that if you're gonna have them outside, which again I highly suggest you do. I think they really benefit from getting that full sun exposure for at least a couple hours during the day. But if you only have an option with like a covered patio or something, put them as close to the edge of the covered patio as you can. I used to have a covered patio in Arizona where I grew a lot of these same varieties, and they just did not look the same as they do growing here. And I think that it is mostly due to the lack of light that they were getting. Even though it was outside under shade and like still being able to get lots more sun exposure outside compared to inside, it just wasn't enough. And I did see a lot of like elotating and skinny growth that just wasn't very impressive. And I did get a little bit of that on the cacti this winter because I overwinter them indoors. Now, as far as timing goes for bringing them outside, I'd say anything above like 45-50 degrees is totally fine. They can handle down to freezing. Cactus can, not euphorbia, so if you have a mixture, just bring them all out at once to save yourself the trouble, I would say. But generally cactus can handle much lower temperatures, but I found that it's just better not to stress them out. So when it does hit around 50, I'll bring them out if it's the spring, or I'll bring them in if it's the fall. When I've shown this whole situation before, having my cactus outside, especially living in Missouri where we get a lot of rain, I've had a lot of people express concerns about the plants getting waterlogged or overwatered or experiencing some sort of root rot. And I have to say, I've never experienced that here, and I think that it is entirely due to the fact that I use a super well draining soil. I use the cactus mix from Tank's Green Stuff. Tank's Green Stuff also makes my De La Tank's houseplant soil that I use indoors, and so the cactus mix is a really great blend. It's even lighter than the De La Tank's, although some people have asked me if you can use De La Tank's for cactus and euphorbia and succulents, and I would say you definitely can, but there is a better product sold by the same company with the same types of ingredients and quality that I would highly suggest. But if you're not wanting to have like another bag of something, you can use the De La Tank's because it honestly is better than any other commercial cactus mix I've ever seen. So and it's not even made for cactus, so that just goes to show how dense a lot of other mixes are, and they're trying to tote it as a cactus and palm or whatever mix, and it's just not. So with all of that being said, if you have a chunky enough mix, your cacti are going to be totally fine getting rained on quite a bit, because the water is just going to fall right through and not get, you know, waterlogged and sticking around those roots and making it super soggy in there. So because I have this good soil, I never worry about it. And I actually do still supplement water. I water them about once a week I could probably do more. It just depends on the rain. So when you do have them outdoors, especially if they're in terracotta, which like all of these are, because, well, I just think that terracotta looks best with cacti, but you're definitely going to have to water your plants that you bring out more often. That goes for houseplants too. And that's just because the air is dry, it's a lot warmer. And so just those two elements in itself is going to dry out that soil a lot faster. So with all of that being said, I'm gonna go around and I'm going to show you all of these individual plants and also talk about the stand. So actually starting not on the stand, I wanted to point out these three here that I have sitting on my table. They have received a lot of light where they have not before. They were all sitting in a pretty darkish area for cactus as far as like cactus and succulents is concerned. So they have a lot of sun stress, and I personally am not worried about this. They feel healthy still. They just have that classic pink coloring to them. So this is a tiger aloe. This is a just regular aloe. It is medicinal. So, you know, if we get a burn or anything like that, we can cut this off and use it for that. I've done that a few times. Even though this plant is small, it definitely still produces some good pulp, or I don't know what it's actually called, but it definitely still produces it, and it's super helpful. This one right here is a crested Myrtillocactus geometrans, and it's a really, really cool one. I love the cresting. The cresting is actually a mutation, so you're not going to see it all of the time, and it will even put out pieces that are not crested. As you can see down lower, we have some non-crested pieces as well, but it's just a really cool piece, and it is getting a little bit of that sun stress as well. It is a typically more of a bluish hue, but we also have some new growth that's coming in, more green, and yeah, it's just really beautiful. And it used to be a lot bigger. I left it out too long a couple winters ago, and I was fortunately able to save this piece, so hopefully it'll continue getting bigger. Okay, down here I have two cacti that I really need to repot, and I even have the pots ready for them, but they're so intimidating that I have just been so scared to do it. But what I'm probably going to do is wrap them in cardboard and then a towel, and then just sort of like lift them out of the pot and then put them in the ceramic pot that I have. It's like 2 terracotta pots. And this one right here is a saguaro, and this is, you know, the iconic Sonoran desert plant. I really, really wanted one to bring here when I moved here, just because it is such a special plant to my home, and it's obviously really small, and it's not going to grow as big as saguaros in Tucson, obviously, but it's still special just having it and just seeing the little details and prettiness that is the saguaro cactus. And then this one is the golden barrel cactus, and I got this one because it is super iconic in Tucson and desert landscaping, and I just wanted a piece of that here. These are extremely, extremely common, and they have some really cute flowers, and I used to play with the flowers growing up and like spread all of the seeds everywhere. So it's just a really special plant to me, and it is as intimidating as it looks. It looks like a very scary bowling ball. Now, as far as this stand goes, I got this stand on Amazon. I will link it down below if you're interested, and I wanted it to match this dining set that I have. It's just like a black set, and so I just got a black stair stepper here, and it actually holds quite a few pots, which I was super happy about. This is a 12 or a 10-inch pot, probably like an 8-inch pot, 8-inch pot, and it fits 3 of them across, and then like 4 smaller, like, you know, 6 to 8-inch pots. So I'm really, really happy with it. It was super easy to put together, and it's very sturdy, and we will see how it holds up this season. This is my first year with it. I think it was around $40, so hopefully it holds up. I have high hopes. I'll probably overwinter this in my garage just to help with the longevity, because the winter here is pretty hard on furniture. So fingers crossed, this will be a piece that I have for a long time. The first one I have over here is a Mexican fence post cactus, and this is also another pretty iconic plant that you'll see in landscaping in Tucson. People will oftentimes have these like around their mailboxes, or just like a big statement plant somewhere in their front yard, and they're just really, really lovely. This is a triple plant, so it has a pup and these two right here, and you can see actually there's like a lighter green color at the top. That is new growth just in the last week or so that it's been out here, so that's super exciting. This is one of my favorite in my collection. This is the silver torch, and you can see new growth up here. Just looks extra hairy, probably from like right here. That's new growth in the last week, which is like absolutely insane. This right here is also new growth. It's crazy that it's already done that, and this plant is well protected from the sun because it has all of these spikes and like furriness on it, so that really protects it, whereas this one, the flesh of the cactus, is a lot more exposed. So this one typically does really, really well in full sun, like immediately. I never have issues, and it puts on a lot of growth every year. So I think when I moved here, it was like around this tall, and you can see there's like a skinny part right here, and there's another skinny little part right here as well, and that's just like evidence of being inside for the winter time and not having as much light as it could have. And yeah, this plant tends to be a little bit top heavy as well, so I have a stake in it, and it's not relying on the stake because I have it kind of leaned up against the window. Like if it did fall, it would fall into the window, as you can see. But yeah, it is a little bit wobbly, so I kind of have to keep an eye on it to make sure that it doesn't topple over. This is a Serious Monstrous. It also goes by another common name that I don't use, but it's really, really cool. It actually overcame some rot, and I was not sure how this plant would do because when I brought it here, it was about this tall and the rot was like right there. And I honestly didn't know how it would recover, but it dried itself up and it's actually totally fine. You can kind of see like the spine of the plant deep in there, which is kind of cool. But yeah, it has recovered and it's put out all of this new growth here. It's kind of leaning a little bit, which is fine. If and when I repot it, I can just set that straight to be, and maybe I can even do that now. There we go. Because this one is spineless, it's super easy to manipulate, but you can see there's sort of like a powdery element on this one, and this is just to help protect it from the sun. So as this one has its spikes, this one has a little powdery surface, just to keep the sun directly off of the flesh of the cactus, and it just protects it. Okay, now down to the next level. I am completely blanking on what this one is called, but I'll have it on the screen. It is a Mammalaria, and the reason that I know that is Mammalaria tend to have a really, really delicate network of spikes, and this one definitely has that, and it's so cool. I love the way that this one looks. It did start putting out some growth living in the house, so you can see it has like a little nipple looking thing. I don't even know what else to call it. So that's not great, but it is what it is, and I will see how the plant looks long term. I'm not gonna cut it off or anything. Maybe it will just have this like tiny little lump and then it'll grow big again. Who knows, but it is what it is. I can't do anything about it. This one is a Snowflake Euphorbia, and it has a more bluish hue, which I just think is so beautiful. Again, Euphorbia tend to have a little bit less of a cold threshold than cacti do. They also tend to need a bit more frequent waterings. So although it is in all of this with all of these cacti, it's an imposter. The care is slightly different. I don't really treat it all that different though, to be honest. Like, I'm not coming out here just to water this plant alone. Like, it'll get water when everything else gets water, but when they're inside, I do sort of water it slightly more often, but that's pretty much the only difference. Next up, we have my Santa Rita prickly pear, and this plant, oh, I have such a love-hate relationship with this plant because it is, again, one of the more iconic landscaping plants. But if you so much as look at this plant for too long, you're gonna get one of those spikes in you. So it's a prickly pear. It's related to the more common like bunny ear cactus that you'll see people have as a houseplant. And yeah, if you just like so much as brush up against this a little bit, you're gonna get like 1,000 tiny little spikes in you, and you're gonna feel them in your hand for like the next 2 weeks and not be able to find them. So even if I am so careful navigating around this plant, I still get them in my fingers, and it's so annoying, but it is very beautiful, so I will put up with it. It again has that bluish hue to protect it from the sun, and I'm excited for it to hopefully put out a baby We will see if it will. Hopefully it does. But you can also see, it might be actually hard to see. I can barely see it with my naked eye, but it has a little bit of a purple tinge at the very top there. So this type of prickly pear does turn purple when it is sun stressed, and a lot of the time in Tucson you'll see them like a more purplish hue. So that's what that is, and I hope that it does that someday, but we will see. Okay, so this is one of those situations where I can't find a specific ID. It's blue torch, I think. I don't remember exactly what kind, but I do think that the family is the Sirius. So anyway, I am kind of like on a rescue mission with this one because you can see I had to cut it because a couple winters ago I left these out for too long in the winter time, and the tops of this just started like rotting off and it looked really scary. So it took almost 2 years, but we finally have some new growth coming up. So it just looks like a little ball up there. It's really cute. And you know, it's a plant that isn't my most beautiful by any means, but I've had it for a really long time and I think it's cute and funny, and it has a little story. This one is my Sirius spiralis. This is one of the, like, you know, rare, hard to find cacti that I have in my collection. I don't have a ton of these just because I prefer, like, you know, more basic cacti. But anyway, this one, it grows in a spiral pattern, and I actually got this from a local nursery in Tucson. I think I paid, I want to say 50, but I think that's too little. I think it might have been more like 100. So it was pretty expensive, but it was grown from seed from that nursery, and it's a nursery that I've been going to since I was a child. It's called Box Cactus Nursery, and in fact a lot of these are from Box. In the winter time it does look very worse for wear and very, very wrinkly pretty much no matter what I do. If I water it, if I'm giving it light, it just doesn't like to live inside, and it's so much happier when I have it outside. So it is still in the process of plumping up and getting its good color back. It is growing really, really well. I think when I moved here it was like about to here, so this is all new since we've lived here in Missouri, and I'm hopeful that it will continue to put out more. It's just such a cool cactus. I really like the way that it looks. Like, the texture is just really awesome. Okay, this one is a golden torch. There isn't much to say about it. It's just like a cool yellow version of the white torch. Pretty much looks exactly the same. The care is exactly the same. And then lastly, we have another blue torch situation, another Sirius. And yeah, it's, I'm running out of things to say, you guys, because they all kind of have similar care and similar stories. I got a lot of these at the same time, but you can see this one, this piece specifically is like very, very blue, which is really cool. And the rest of these are more of like a sagey green color. But yeah, this is such a cool one, and I love that all 4 of them have stayed alive. This one we lost a little baby there, but that's okay because we still have the 2. And that is my outdoor cactus collection. I'm so excited to see how much growth they put on this year, and it's just nice, honestly, having something out here that doesn't require me to water it all the time. I know that I said that I water them about once a week, but if I forget, it's not a big deal because number 1, it's probably gonna rain, and number 2, they are drought tolerant because they are cactus. So if you know anything about the desert, you know that we go long stretches without water, so they are no stranger to a little bit of a drought. They're gonna be totally fine. So if you're looking for something to have on your patio that can handle full sun for a couple of hours, definitely consider putting your cactus collection outside on a stair stepper bench like this. I think it looks really beautiful, and it makes me want to have even more, but I'm not going to because the thought of storing all of these every single winter is really daunting, and I need to like make sure I don't buy any more this year because we're at our limit. If you're not already, make sure that you subscribe to my channel and share this video with a planty friend. If you like cactus a lot, make sure that you give it a like so that YouTube knows that I'm doing something you like, so they'll show you more of my videos. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!